Hi everyone, welcome to our Metaverse Tech Talk, hosted by ParkLink. We're thrilled to have you along today for what will no doubt be a very exciting and engaging discussion about the near future of mixed reality, especially given the caliber of our participants today, our panelists, whom I'll introduce to you in a moment. My name is Mark Saltzman. I'm a technology evangelist. For the past 25 plus years, I like to preach about the benefits of technology, how it can enhance and enrich your life, both personally and professionally. And you may be wondering how the metaverse is tied to business and parking. So I think you're going to get a lot out of today's discussion. Many consider the metaverse the evolution of the internet, this fusion of the physical with the digital, and there's so much we're going to explore today. So again, thank you for joining us. All right, so without further ado, please allow me to introduce our esteemed panelists, beginning with Sarah Baldeo to my left. Sarah is CEO and equity partner at ID Quotient Advisory Group, with 17 years of senior leadership experience spanning DevOps, business transformation, regulatory compliance, and product engineering. Sarah's illustrious career began in asset management and risk model design within financial institution frameworks, and continued with architecting SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, and DaaS systems. Some fun acronyms to say, no doubt. At the core of her career is developing technology that leverages AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and neural networks, all to create automation and new opportunities for growth. Sarah presently serves as CEO and chairwoman for IDQ Advisory Group. Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm excited to chat with you. To Sarah's left is Stefan Sandu. Hi, Stefan. He is Managing Director, Retail Services at BGIS. He is focused on establishing a strategic vision, management strategy, and turnkey facility services for retail clients. Stefan brings a wealth of experience through his engineering background and time spent as the property manager for North America's busiest multi-use complex. Can you guess it? The Cadillac Fairview Toronto Eaton Centre. You know, a small building.
Small building.
Yeah, very small. Thank you, Stefan. Great to chat with you. And finally, last but not least, to Stefan's left is Danny Irullo. Thank you, Danny, for joining us. He is, of course, Director of Proposal Developments at ParkLink. Thank you for hosting us today, Danny. As Director of Proposal Development at ParkLink, Danny plays a key role in interpreting the company's prospective clients' needs and developing the technology and management solutions that address the challenges they identify. Under Danny's direction, the team of proposal writers Danny oversees are charged with developing content strategies that best position ParkLink as the leader in the Canadian parking market. He's been with ParkLink since 2010. And here's a fun fact. Outside of work, he plays in a classic rock band. Now, you can also jam in the metaverse, but we're not going to get to that today. We're going to stick to business applications. But hi, Danny. Thanks so much for joining us on the panel.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This is going to be a lot of fun. All right, Sarah, why don't we start with you? I know in a few moments from now, we're going to talk about how the metaverse works and why businesses should adopt it. But I guess at a high level, what is the metaverse?
What's important, I think, to understand firstly is that there are multiple metaverses. So I would say it's analogous. An easy way to explain it is, let's think about the internet. There's multiple websites that you can visit. There's one World Wide Web. With the metaverse, there's multiple metaverses that may be built, and often are, on different types of platforms. So when you think about metaverses, there's different ways that people would engage with different types of metaverses. And really the division right now is virtual reality versus augmented reality. So you and I could be sitting here, you can be on your device, you can be engaging with a particular metaverse for a service or gamification directly on your device, but we're still sitting here in reality. Versus immersive reality, where you're now putting on, for example, an Oculus Rift, and you're sitting in a game or some alternate version of reality, which isn't necessarily going to be identical to the reality we see. And perhaps even you and I might not look like what we look like in this dimension.
Right.
So I think it's an easy way to put it in kind of one term. It's an alternate digital reality that we can engage with in different ways.
So there's different gateways to the metaverse with different equipment, which we will touch on. And I'm glad that you explained the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality. Augmented is where you can still see the world around you, like us four sitting here, but there could be digital information augmented on top. I could be wearing special glasses that has text around you that reminds me of the company you work for or something like that, you know, when you're out socially. And then virtual reality is when you're completely enclosed and it's a 100% digital experience that could mirror the real world, but it's not augmenting it. So that's a great clarification. Thank you. Danny, why would businesses embrace the metaverse today?
Speaking with Sarah earlier, the metaverse at first was to me Bored Ape and NFTs, but it's really not. It's really that augmented reality that I think we find exciting in the parking world, because it's a way for us to deliver services to our customers in a real-time way, in a meaningful way, and in a way that where they can experience it where they're at instead of searching it out. So we see a lot of opportunity in that. The ability to say, hey, let's make it part of our reality as opposed to just being this virtual world. And we see opportunity in the virtual world itself, but the fact that we can do augmented reality and deliver customer service that way. Mark, you had mentioned once I could have an officer standing there like this as a hologram, and I thought, well, that's kind of a cool thing to do. And that's where we see the excitement, not just from a parking perspective. I mean, anyone could use it for those reasons. So we're really excited about that opportunity that presents itself.
Danny, is the metaverse something that you think consumers want today and that the businesses have to adapt? Or is it something that technologists and businesses think the customers want? Like, how do you gauge the right time to jump in?
Well, imagine I can use now augmented reality to guide that individual. Their digital signature on their car lets me now take them to that exact spot I want them to go to. So it's not just us pushing technology on people. It's like, hey, I found a way to help Stefan get to his parking spot that he reserved earlier. So we see a lot of exciting opportunity there. It's something they don't know they want yet, but they've talked about it. And now I see a tool that we can use to actually deliver that to our clients.
Yeah, fantastic. And Sarah, what businesses are you seeing adopting the metaverse today? Is it really, do you think it'll be really applicable to everything?
To answer your question, when I look at the kinds of companies, I think the first types of companies were companies that are in the gaming space. Yeah. So if you have kids, you could think about Roblox, you could think about Minecraft, you could think about Fortnite, people that are really saying, well, that's a metaverse. This is a kind of gaming space.
And even with concerts, like even in a game like Fortnite, there are musicians that are performing and you can go and congregate somewhere with a friend who lives somewhere else virtually and watch.
Yeah, I have seen lots of charges on my credit card from my own child for that. So I think it started out with this concept of gamification and very much to your point, entertainment. But what's very interesting is you can see banks are getting into this space. So JP Morgan launched this amazing metaverse lounge where there's, for the year of the tiger, this prowling tiger that's kind of walking around in a metaverse space. Yeah. Retailers, like Stefan was talking about, are saying, well, maybe you might want to try on outfits.
Yeah, I know Nike is bullish on this.
Nike is very bullish. Luxury designers, so Gucci has gotten into this space. And really it's this idea, I think, that is very much a part of the fifth industrial revolution, which is the merging of human beings, artificial intelligence and technology, and people really exploring what are things that I might want to experience in a different way, in an alternate reality, whether it's something that I might not be able to afford in the real physical dimension, or something I might want to try out, or even NFT sneakers that I want to buy. So banking, retail, and a really cool one that is starting in Asia Pacific is really the exploration of social services. So South Korea has invested, I think, 3.9 billion won into building a metaverse space where all citizens can kind of go in and explore voting, taxes, my driver's license. And that, to me, is really that next level of what maybe one day we can explore in Canada.
Stefan, I think the next question sort of begs, why do we need the metaverse? What's wrong with just the internet today?
I think businesses have to start looking at being part of that early adoption cycle. If you think back to the late 90s, early 2000s, there's this huge rush for companies to get onto the internet, establish their web presence. have a digital storefront. And I think these are all terms we're familiar with. We totally understand them now. We all shop online. A majority of us might primarily shop online. And I think as we look to the future, many parts of the industries, you look at commercial, retail, media, gaming, they're going to move into a metaverse-like experience. Now, it may not start with the fully virtual avatar sitting in your chair for 10 hours a day, but when you look at ideas like augmented reality and kind of enhancing the physical world with a digital experience, I think businesses have to start looking at that early and being part of that early adopter cycle. A lot of our clients just taking their real estate, so our banking clients, our retail clients, our commercial office clients, they're just taking their space and mapping in the 3D world, LiDAR scanning, virtual location surveys. It's such a growing part of our business, and we call it the digital FM. It's a digital facility management component of our business. We're out there at hundreds of locations a year doing this for our clients. And really they're taking their space, mapping into the 3D world, and then they're finding opportunities to do something with that 3D model and that digital twin. Danny, you talked about parking and having a holographic individual. Well, that can start with just 3D mapping your space and looking at the opportunities. Where could I have that wayfinding? Where could I have that signage, the marketing, all that pieces that are important to a parker. But for other clients as well, it's, how do I reconfigure my space now in the 3D world? Well, it makes it a lot easier to do it when I have a model. And then you get into the luxury retailers, as Sarah was talking about. Well, they're thinking about, how can I display my merchandise now in my 3D world? How do I set up my merchandising? How do I even lay out my store? So I think it's a very exciting time and an easy way for businesses to get involved.
So Sarah, most of us are not software engineers, so maybe you can dumb it down for us and explain, how is this metaverse being built?
A lot of metaverses are built on different types of platforms, and generally right now the kind of two popular ones are Decentraland and Sandbox. So there's companies like PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, that has invested tons of money into Sandbox, and there's other ones that have said, okay, we want to go with Decentraland. So I'm saying these words, and I think the big question is, that sounds like crypto.
Yeah.
And really, it's built on a blockchain. And I think that's where some of the confusion comes from, that there are different types of platforms that leverage cryptographies and leverage cryptocurrency and a blockchain mechanism. And that's essentially the foundational system architecture that metaverses are built upon. And that's how people are, I think it's an easier way to understand, those are the building blocks.
Yeah.
Those are the building blocks, and blockchain is an easy way to remember that these are the building blocks of metaverses.
Because of the internet in the 90s was built on different platforms. Like if I'm on one website and I tried to go to another and it didn't work, that obviously would not help the adoption of the internet and the World Wide Web being what it became. So similarly, the hope is that even though metaverses are built on different platforms, there is going to be compatibility. If you want to travel virtually from one place to another, there's not going to be a roadblock. So with that in mind, when you hear about people buying virtual plots of land, like real estate, how does that work exactly? And how easy will it be to transfer between different metaverses seamlessly?
So the interesting concept that I think a lot of people are now trying to understand is it just unlimited land? Is there just an unlimited amount of land?
Right.
No. So every platform, when a platform is launched, like Bitcoin or Decentraland or Sandbox, there's a limited amount of space. There's a limited amount of real estate. So when you hear about companies spending billions of dollars buying up digital real estate, it's really the premise of scarcity. Each platform is designed at its inception when it's launched to say there's a limited amount of space, and that's why it's so valuable. Because as Stefan talked about, if a client says, well, I want to have a digital twin of the Eaton Center, that has to be built on a platform where there's a scarcity of land. And now who owns that?
Stefan, what tools are being used by the businesses that you consult with to build out that?
Special cameras, LiDAR scanners. It's amazing, as technology gets better and better. A lot of these tools are available on our phone today. To a lesser degree, you can do some virtual scanning with your your phone, kind of, we've all
iPhone has invented a lot
iPhone
of that.
has some of that capability, but obviously on a much larger scale, like the Eaton Center or a big commercial property, it's more cameras, a little bit more precision in the way it's done.
It lets you engage with your properties in a different way, right? So I mean, there's flat drawings or there's 3D modeling, but I want to stand in the middle of my space and feel like I'm looking around and seeing it and making decisions on it. So there's data-driven decisions, very important. Well, I want visual data to make decisions, to go, you know what, that light doesn't work there. I want to move it over for, like, it's nutty stuff, but it's a very powerful tool. And that's where I see a lot of the excitement from us is from a design perspective and utilization perspective, and really being able to be in the middle of it.
And I think it's fair to say that many of us are visual learners.
I mean, I can count numerous times where someone built something out and it was off a flat model, and they actually experience and they go, man, that didn't work there. But imagine you could walk through, before you've invested all this money in this building, that you can actually now see these things and make these decisions. And I think that's where the real power of the tool is from our perspective and the building perspective.
That's a great point, Danny. And leaping off that, you look at, if anyone's bought a house recently, I'm sure we've all done a virtual tour before buying the house or looking at it. And in the past, you have to just work off pictures. But now you can go right into the middle of the house, into the space, see it, fall in love with the kitchen, pay way too much for it. But like that's a little bit of a metaverse experience right there, and you might not think about it, but you take that experience and you apply it to other spaces like parking.
Yeah.
It's the same approach, and as parking is kind of the entrance into shopping centers and people's office spaces and all these great spaces, it's like the entryway into these destinations, so it becomes so important.
Yeah, and I'm counting on people like Sarah to make it so that the next step is I actually feel like I'm in the space and not looking at even a 3D VR, twisting a picture around. I want to feel like I'm in the space, so I'm counting on you to do that for us.
I'll do my best.
What are some of these other tools that would simulate reality in a virtual space?
So when you talk about what the tools are, so there's augmented realities, there's things like glasses or your phone, which you can kind of look through and see a part of the virtual world in the real world. There's obviously the headsets, and we're seeing multiple kinds of headsets now, different companies jumping into that space. And then I would say the next level is wearable tech. So watches, I think, definitely are becoming a part of it. You get that tactile feedback, gloves, and we're looking at clothes now as well that have built-in charging and sensors. And I think this is just the start of it. I think this is just we're just getting to the point where the possibilities are endless, and you're going to see technology in all kinds of wearables and different stuff come out, and it's very exciting.
Now, Stefan, you mentioned tactical feedback or haptic feedback. Just in plain English, we're talking about the sense of touch. You mentioned gloves, and I know that now with some glasses, it will model your hands through a little camera. You don't even have to wear gloves, but you won't feel something tangible, right? Can you elaborate on what those sensations?
I think that feedback really lets you experience products, right? So you talk about a retailer like Canada Goose, or you're talking about some of these high-end luxury retailers. They want people to come in and experience their product. And this lets them experience it from their home or from their office or on their lunch break or at the park. So, that feedback lets you feel that material. How's it going to feel? What does it kind of look like? And the dimensions. But also there's other sensors like, lets you experience the wind. If you're on an amusement park ride, the sounds of the space. Sarah was talking about even some of the smells, trying to inject in the smells of the space to really immerse yourself in the space.
So all five senses.
All five senses are starting to get there. It's almost life imitating, sci-fi. You talk about Star Trek and the holodeck and everything, and that's the end goal. But as we get there, all these sensors are aligned to kind of experience the products, and for businesses, that's very exciting because it's what they want you to do. They want you to experience the products. It's why they try to get you in the store to try to sell you the product. But if they can do it in the metaverse, it's one less step for them exposing their product.
Again, it sounds like science fiction, but I think we will get there. It's a matter of when, not if. How far are we from a movie or a book, Ready Player One? You know what?
I think all three of us have talked about this, and we might all have different opinions, and I think the industry probably has different opinions. But I think, Sarah talked about the virtual world, the metaverse, and you look at gaming, and it's already happening. Kids are spending money, maybe not kids, maybe adults as well, are spending money on...
Kids at heart.
Yeah, kids at heart, that's right. Are spending money on their virtual avatars and spending so much time in the virtual world. I personally think it's like 25 to 30 years away, but it's going to gradually get there.
I still think it's a ways away, but I love the idea that you're saying that, you know, it's not just 30 years and it hits. We'll be gradually moving there and seeing improvements as we get to that point.
And I think it's like how the Web 2.0, 3.0 started, you know, a lot of us here probably adopted technology with cell phones and internet. We kind of grew up with it. But today's newest generation is born into cell phones and the internet, and they grow up with it. And, you know, I have a 3-year-old niece that can do more on her iPad than I can do today, probably. And so I think as this grows and the next generation is born into having metaverses by default, it's going to become the way they do business and the way they run their life and go to school.
I disagree with them both.
Okay.
I have told them, and I will tell you, I definitely think that it's 5 to 10 years away.
Okay.
And I think there's a number of reasons driving that. I think the economy is driving it. I think the cost of gas, the cost of living in cities. I think that people want change and they want accessibility and they want an augmented reality, not where they're just going to delve into their basement and never emerge from it.
Sure.
But that there are positives for efficiencies for digital accessibility that can help a lot of people. And, you know, let's think about during COVID. During COVID, you weren't necessarily going to see your doctor. You were having a virtual consult.
Yep.
What if that happened in a metaverse? So I really think that it is up to people. But I think largely it's up to regulators to make the decision of what is going to be allowed, what are people allowed to do, and what kind of data can be shared. And that's when you start looking at regulatory compliance and you start looking at kind of this new bill that recently just came out, Bill C-27, that talks about digital identities, artificial intelligence, what can be shared, what are the mechanisms that need to be in place. So government doesn't always move as fast as I would like. So maybe we can agree that it's not 30 years and it's not 10.
It's a great point. And I mean, I just, Stefan, I'll turn to you, but just to your point, Sarah, about how technology is often ahead of like the regulation or legislation. Delivery drones, technically speaking, it can be done where you can order something on your phone or smartwatch and have it delivered in 30 minutes or less safely. Or autonomous vehicles. We're almost there, so 100% safe, but it's really advancing faster than I think people realize. But there's all the legislative hurdles.
But I think, you know, as companies and businesses are looking for differentiation, right? I mean, we've talked about differentiation. I'm sure it comes up in parking as well. Is every company is trying to differentiate their product and their experience. And as they bring the metaverse into that fold, you know, if that becomes something that's accelerated, then I think the adoption just happens quicker. And then maybe you're looking at 10 years instead of 20 years. And, you know, I think back to cell phones when they started in the late 2000s. And, you know, here we are sitting 15 years later and everyone has a cell phone. You know, if that same trajectory happens in the metaverse, if businesses pick on and AR headsets and virtual meetings and experiencing things with your hands and gloves in the metaverse, then the adoption could happen a lot quicker, right? We went from no smartphones, no apps in the 2000s to today where there's not an individual that doesn't have a smartphone or maybe two that they're carrying around.
When it comes to property, facility managers, what is the appeal of the metaverse?
Well, the appeal is, again, making an image of your space and being able to interact with it. So we see this on the new build side quite a bit, where on a flat drawing, something looks, you don't see interferences, shadow studies, all these things you can't do on a flat drawing. But there's tools available. So we 3D model now drawings, and you have a different look at what the space is going to look like. But this is the next level where you can actually feel like you're walking in the space. And we talked about this before, where you're looking around and saying, that doesn't make sense here. The other power of it is to say, well, what if I moved this to here instead? Put this entryway here, stripe the parking lot in a different way. And these are tools that are available now, but we see the metaverse being able, like I said, when you're in the middle of it, when you're walking through it, you mentioned this before, walking through a house, then you get a real sense of it. And I think that's where the power of the tool is from a building owner, to kind of play around with what it's going to look like and how it's going to feel. vehicular movements? Where are my pedestrians walking? And we've run into this before. We're like, we wish we could run a car to see, is it actually going to fit in that space? Does it make sense for this pedestrian to be crossing at this point in this parking lot? And does it pose a danger? Your health and safety perspective. You can address all these things through these tools. And that, I think, is really close. You know, when we're talking about when is the metaverse coming, I see that's being real close, and people should start looking at that from an owner's perspective. You can do it with your existing builds too. It doesn't have to be with your new builds. Model your what you have now, and then start playing around with things. So from an owner's perspective, it's very powerful. From an operator's perspective, the ability to have virtual customer service is just phenomenal. Like Precise has done wonders with automating facilities, but this metaverse lets us take it to the next level. Having somebody there, it really feels like they're there. Or imagine if you're needing to understand how to use a piece of technology, where I can have this kind of Star Trek thing where this hologram appears and I'm showing you how to use this pay station or operate this piece of application. You mentioned before, we're visual learners. Even from an operator, we can look around the space in real time and feel like we're walking it. In health and safety, potholes, problems with the facility, lights out. We can now suddenly do this and hyper jump to all these spaces in the garage and be able to give feedback to building owners to say, hey, these are things we need to do to maintain your garage. And then, from a customer's perspective, imagine, I mentioned this example before, that when I've reserved a spot at a garage, and now through my, the system picks me up and my car has a digital signature, and suddenly on my, my dash, it's telling me exactly where to go, and we see excitement from there, from being able to engage with customer service in a real time, in a hologram type of way, all kinds of opportunities for the customer as well. So there's a lot of different areas that this would impact, and I think a lot of that is sooner rather than later in terms of the metaverse, because I look at it as an augmented way for us to deliver our services.
Now, Stefan, I think for those who own parking garages, the incentive to push to get into the metaverse might be revenue related. Is there an opportunity to make money from the metaverse if you're a parking operator or owner?
Absolutely. I think there's two paths to look at it. You can generate more revenue, and it helps you to better manage your properties and your assets.
So saving money and
reduce your costs. And really that entry point, as I say to a lot of clients, is just start with mapping your space and looking at it and trying to figure out what the opportunities are. But I think both there's the increase the revenue side of it, but also help you better manage your properties for both owners and property managers and landlords, and look at where can I save money. So I think it's both of them, and the better management with the tools. It's like having data in today's world. Today we might have a flat file with Excel, and you might look at your data and make some business decisions based on that data. Sure. This is another data point. It just happens to be in 3D space. Yeah. It's the 3D analogy of having that data and making better business decisions based on that data.
So yeah, you were talking about holograms earlier, Danny. So it probably isn't a stretch that our windshields will also have augmented information on top of layered on top of the real world, so long as it's not distracting. So you talked about a customer service rep. So is it a stretch to say that one day in the near future, I'll pull into a lot, my car will know that I am based on the GPS or geographical information, and a virtual customer service rep will pop up and say, hi, Mark, I hope you're having a great morning so far. There's a spot just down there, and it's all virtual.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And people are asking for that today. How do I get that personalized experience? And this is the next level of it. So, to have a hologram pop up or to have it in your windshield displayed, you mentioned this before, you're driving in and marketing and you have your car and you have a digital signature, and suddenly this virtual signboard comes up with an ad that is really tailored to you. I think people will pay for that, right? Not just you, but even the building owners will pay for that, because it is a revenue generator for them and for their tenants as well. So it's very powerful.
Now, Sarah, forget just seeing ads that know that you're in a parking lot to help boost sales for a company. But what if I pulled into a real world parking spot, let's say Scotiabank Center, but with the metaverse component, is it a stretch to say, okay, Mark, I know you're going to work across the street. Would you like me to order you a Starbucks coffee and croissant to your desk? So by the time you get out of your vehicle and go up there, so isn't there opportunities for businesses and parking garages like this?
I think that's really the concept of open source, decentralized applications, that it's the integration of multiple components of life that can be parking, can be banking, can be social services, can be trying on an outfit because I want to see and touch and feel. And there's all these components of things that, to your point, we're doing in real life. We still want to experience real life, but an augmented version. And all of those opportunities are revenue opportunities for retailers, for banks, for facility management, for parking, for all of these things that if there's a holistic way for me to do that as a consumer, I'm going to pay for that.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. Stefan and Danny, let's talk a bit about, we're already building out smart cities and smart buildings. Is there a natural fusion here with the metaverse?
Absolutely. And when you start looking across industries, so you think about transportation, airports, and how they connect people into your city, and that's where the smart cities might start, right? You have a new visitor into your city, they can look at the space of the airport, get you to your destination, taking that transportation to your, if you're going to an office tower downtown, maybe it's to an event at Scotiabank Arena, or maybe it's to a class at U of T. I think it all starts with that experience. So I think the smart city tie into the smart building is a huge application. And when you talk about smart buildings, it touches across many sectors. It could be warehousing, it could be commercial, it could be office space, events, but residential as well. So I think the tie-in is really great. And I visited a great office tower. I won't name names on whose office tower it was, but the experience was just amazing, almost metaverse-like. You got a QR code before you went to the space, you scanned it in at the entrance, and it did the wayfinding for you. Now, it did it in 2D today in terms of mapping out where you're going, but in the future, that application could be 3D. We could be wearing, VR headsets in the real world and kind of guiding you to which elevator, which the building did. It guided me right to the elevator, up to my office space, and showed me the meeting room. And I think when you take that concept to the metaverse, huge applications across smart cities and smart buildings.
Yeah, I think we'll evolve to, just to touch on your point, smart glasses, and then that'll turn into smart contacts, which will then go from a wearable to an embeddable, like surgery. That's down the road. I don't want to sound like I'm scaring anybody, but I do think it's inevitable that we're going to be part human, part machine. We already are, but we're gonna evolve into that. Danny, with that in mind, talk to us about municipalities and how they can benefit from the metaverse.
A number of ways. I mean, what's really taken off in the last couple of years is deliveries, right? Everyone's ordering stuff online. That means it's got to physically arrive. So cities are struggling actually with curbside management, right? Where are all these vehicles parking as they run in and drop off a package for Stefan? So,
or a lunch, right? Food delivery.
Food delivery. It's like
huge.
Everything has just taken off. So because of that, managing the curb has become a real big issue for the city. So imagine you can use now a tool in real time, again, to physically see, not just looking at data to say, this many cars in this block of time. When you visually see it and you go, I see what the problem is. And you can start designing strategies around how to manage that curb, reserving times for when you can actually make deliveries, guiding a delivery person to say, no, keep moving and you're going to go over and park over here and walk this way to get this package over here. They're looking for tools or thirst. And so the Meta is actually a perfect tool for a smart city, from reserving, checking out what parking like is like in downtown Burlington when I want to go see a show, to deliveries. It's all very applicable, and I think cities should be looking towards and building a meta strategy to use these tools to help manage these very real and today type of issues.
Let's pivot and talk a bit about transacting in the metaverse. So Danny, obviously, when it comes from a parking perspective, you've been with the company long enough, I think 12, 13 years, where you've seen us going from pushing coins into a machine to tapping a credit card, or inserting first and then tapping a credit card, or now smartwatches, now then apps, paying in advance. And then I think what Sarah talked about was the blockchain side of thing with with cryptocurrency. How does this all play a role here?
Well, it's true. We've seen an evolution from traditional payment methods to digital payment methods. So, and we just see that that's going to continue. So, the ability to take a crypto payment, for example, is not that far off or not that far-fetched for that matter, right? There's a digital way for us right now to transact with a customer. So it's simply, how do we get it to this next level? And is the world really ready to pay with crypto? But certainly, those are the types of things we want to do. It is a very secure way to pay using the blockchain and smart contracts. Imagine I could do all my permit parking through that. And so that permit digitally and truly belongs to Sarah all the time. No one can use it, no one can share it. It's a very secure now digital way to get into and out of a parking lot. So there's some really exciting ways for us to utilize the technology from a payment perspective. Like I said, we're seeing that evolution now, and I could see those two things happening in very short order.
So what advice would you give if I met with you at your company? What are your tips to getting going?
Getting your 3D model, if you have it already, or if you don't, getting your space 3D modeled, and to start looking at the opportunities. And it's just that simple, right? It's just one step, get a 3D model and start to look at your space and what the applications could be.
And what should businesses prioritize when it comes to the metaverse?
I think it's looking at the opportunities, and different parts of the business will have different opportunities. So if you're in parking or facility management, you're going to look at your management opportunities with that 3D space. If you're in retail or marketing, you're going to obviously look at retail and marketing. But I think it's, get your space mapped and then look at your core business and see how you can apply revenue opportunities and cost savings in that 3D space.
I think the first step is interacting with augmented reality, with virtual realities, and understanding that there are so many different ways that it can be done. I think for, and when you ask about kind of the steps, I would break it down in 3 steps. I think the first step is experiencing, either business owners or consumers, having some kind of a touch and an interaction. If I'm a business, I'm thinking about, okay, what's the technology infrastructure that I need to build out to support this from an application or monetization perspective? Then it's the operational component, which is the management and kind of facilities management, and who's going to deal with all of this for me? And then there's the marketing. Market it and kind of advertise that your brand, your entity is now in this space. And I would say, those are kind of the 3 steps that any organization can jump on board, a trend that honestly I don't think is going anywhere.
Do companies outsource a metaverse like a consultant or hire an agency to handle all that? Or should they hire someone internally in order to bridge them to this next generation of the internet?
So a lot of companies are looking to the big 4 management consultant firms and saying to them, hey, I want to set up shop in the metaverse. Can you help me do that? The concern is, as you said, it's a risk. It's a bet, and it's an exorbitant amount of money to pay one of the big 4 to do that. I certainly don't think that you have to hire a gigantic multi-billion-dollar company to help you with the strategy, but I do think it's smart to hire a consultant that has expertise in, not necessarily myself, but there's a ton of consultants that really are in this space. They're creating metaverses, and they're trying to do it in what's really called human-centered design. So the human-centered design component is you can build the best mousetrap. If people are not going to use it and they're not going to understand it, then you've wasted all your money. And I think a way to mitigate that risk is to hire an independent consultant to help on risk advisory, privacy advisory, cybersecurity advisory, and definitely UX design components in different applications that you might be using to connect your customers to metaverses.
Very practical advice, thank you. And I know Stefan hinted at this is scalable. So you can dip your toe in instead of a deep dive and see if it's for you and if it's the right time and who you should trust as a partner.
That's right. It's very scalable. It's flexible, nimble, and adaptable. And so you can dip your toe in, see if you like the water and how it feels, and then decide if you're going to jump in full hog.
Danny, what discussions are you having
We've made great strides in terms of automating the experience, but providing tools so that customers feel like they have the support that they need. And this is the next level that would take us to, again, feeling like, not having to have people in places, which is kind of where the world is moving away from. Hospitals in particular, customers are there. It's not an enjoyable experience that they're there, and they need actually a higher level of help. They're the ones we struggle with most to say, how do we automate your operation? Well, you know what? They need help. How do I park? Where do I park? How do I use technology? How do I pay? They tend to need more help, and especially in the situation that they're in, it needs that personal touch. And those where the discussions are. Like, we've taken it to this level, and now we need to go here to provide those experiences. And it's not just limited to hospitals. I mean, you talk to our commercial partners, they want a great experience for their parkers, because that causes them to renew their lease in the building. So they appreciate the importance of that amenity. So they're looking to us for a better managed experience so that they will stay in the building and renew the lease. Or someone going to a hospital doesn't feel like they're kind of left on their own. And so those are the types of discussions we're having to have. How do we use this to take it to the next level and provide that human experience in an automated world?
And often the parking facility is the first experience that the customer has for that facility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the first experience you have, and it's the last one, and it's the one they probably remember the most in a lot of cases. So we do our best to make sure that we're providing a meaningful experience to them. And you know what they've said, a great parking experience is one that you don't remember. And that's the best we can do, but we know there's more that we can offer at the front end. They go, hey, that was fantastic. I felt like I knew where I was going, how to get it just improves the experience and the mood going into the building. So it's not just about parking your car anymore.
To your customers and your partners, do they get the sense that the metaverse is just something so far out there, or is this already entering your discussions?
Oh, it's definitely entering our discussions. I think a lot of people, if they sat back and thought about it, they go, kind of all the tools are there. We're on virtual meetings. There's virtual conference spaces now. You're using social media, billions of messages a day. You're transacting online. You're transferring money. You're kind of using all the tools that the metaverse will be built on. So I think if people sat back and said, I kind of am there, and it's just a few more, like you said, steps at a time. But I think people should look and say, yeah, I am there. So it's not such a scary proposition, and it's becoming more and more of a conversation. It's exciting conversation, the possibilities for sure.
So Stefan, I guess for those who feel overwhelmed by all of this, what's your call to action? What's your advice for companies who want to be part of this next generation of the internet, of life, really, I think, personally and professionally?
Yeah, if your company hasn't got started, or your department, whatever it may be, I think the first step is just familiarizing yourself with the technology, getting to know the technology and what is the technology that's out there, what are the applications, and then looking at how you can incorporate it into your business. What is the opportunity for better management, for more revenue, for improving your operations? And a lot of the time we find when our clients do that, they find opportunities they never thought existed. So I think that's really the first step. And if you're overwhelmed with the technology and the metaverse and this big whole concept, I think you just start small and get to know it a little bit, and the opportunities will arise.
Now, Danny, perhaps as we end off, what I really like about the company is that you're looking to the future. You're looking at the trajectory, the adoption of technology go like this over, history, and then really spike. But you're doing this I think in a really smart fashion, a smart way.
For sure, and I think it's being part of that space. We want to manage it in a responsible way, manage your property, manage our clients' operations in a responsible way, and looking towards the tools. I mean, it's something not as, we talk about cost savings, right? Like to reduce, the number of people physically on site. Well, you know what? That's part of the equation, right? Like, there's revenue generation, there's cost savings.
Yeah, but reducing those pain points.
Exactly, but still being able to deliver the same level of service. So it's funny, you talk about the timing, you may now have me convinced that the metaverse is the brick phone right now. So it's there, we're here. It's just going to really improve over time. And I think, us as an operator, we're seeing, and it's a brick phone now, and we'll use it. And as it develops and grows, we're going to make sure that our operations are evolving with the technology, and that we're always on that leading edge on behalf of our clients. That's
Your
really
clients
how we look
and
at
their
it.
customers.
And at the end of the day, it is all about the customer service.
Well, it has to be a
customer
win-win,
experience.
right?
Exactly.
For
yeah.
guests, for employees who use your
Yes.
your facilities,
Yeah.
and visitors, and
100%,
and what have
yeah,
you.
yeah.
All right. Thank you, Danny. And I think that's a great way to end off today's very stimulating discussion about the metaverse. Again, we're taking an often overwhelming concept, and with your expertise and passion, breaking down geek speak into street speak for our audience, which I think is welcomed, because many of them want to be part of this, but they want to do it in the right way. Thank you for tuning in to our discussion today, and thank you most importantly to our panelists, Sarah, Stefan, and Danny. What an engaging discussion. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did moderating it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.